I'm a genie in a bottle.
I wish for unlimited wishes.
And I can snap my fingers. And for one day, you can be anywhere in the world. So you get a day to experience anywhere in the world. Money is not an object. You know, imagine that it is the most idyllic day possible. So wherever you're going, it has the best weather for that place. Everything's set up for you. You know, you say, I want to do this in a day, and it's happening, right? What are you doing? You got one day.
Yes, I promise you will hear the answer to that question today as the tables are turned a bit. My buddy Travis Sherry just relaunched his podcast, Extra Pack of Peanuts. It's another travel podcast. And I was honored to be his very first long-form interview guest. And we decided to do something fun and just dream. Put together our travel wish list in real time. So you're going to hear places that I might want to go, places that I'm considering, perhaps some travel advice weaved in throughout, and you get to dream along with us. I encourage you to put together your own travel wish list as we go along and answer these questions for yourself and see what comes out. This is a fun one, and we're going to get into it right now. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. Now, why is this one worth listening to? Well, yes, you're going to hear my travel wish list, and that's fun. And Travis and I get to jam on some of the places we want to go based on some really fun questions he asks. But what will make this really cool and a bit of an interactive experience for you is if you answer these questions for yourself and just kind of see what comes out, because I think some of the frameworks that Travis set up for these questions are fun ones, and it might get you thinking about, you know, some of the places you want to go based on your current lifestyle, what kind of time you have available. I think it'll just spark some new ideas, some new travel ideas for you. So come along on the ride with Travis and I. Travis, by the way, host of the Extra Pack of Peanuts podcast, which he just relaunched. It's been around forever. It's a great travel podcast. Encourage you to check it out. I'm honored to be back on the mic with him. This is a fun one. Enjoy. Stick around on the back end. I've got a shout out to somebody in the community. Did something really cool that I find really inspiring, and something that really exemplifies, when it comes down to it, how cool projects really start at the beginning. And I think she's on her way to something really cool. So stick around for that. For now, please enjoy my chat with Travis from the Extra Pack of Peanuts travel podcast, and I will see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers.
Hello, podcast nerds, and welcome to the Extra Pack of Peanuts podcast. I'm your host, Travis Sherry, and with me today, you know, I figured for the first time recording with a guest in a long, long time, I had to bring this man onto the mic, my very good friend, my former co-host over at the Location Indie podcast, the co-host at the Zero to Travel podcast, a man wearing a shirt about tacos that says Me Gusta Location Indie, Jason Moore, affectionately known as Jaybird. Thanks for popping on the mic with me again, man.
Dude, I mean, I'm honored and excited. And yes, I had to represent the community today. And are you slumming it over here with the Zero to Travel podcast host? I mean, I don't think so. I'm pretty honored to be back for the first recording. It does mean a lot. In the podcast world, I think it's like a very generous gesture, you know? So thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure. Those of you who have been listening to EPOP podcast for a while, you know that for a while, we have not recorded with guests. So Heather and I have recorded a bunch of episodes. I've done some solo shows. We're doing a lot of testing out of different formats and just having fun with it. But for my first longer form interview in, I'm going to guess 2 years, I said, there's only one person that I can ask to come on. And there's only really one topic that I want to cover. And that is just dreaming about travel. And so in today's episode, we're going to do that. We're going to each give some of our travel wish lists. I'm gonna prompt you, Jay, with some fun categories I came up with. And this really is predicated on a show that I listened to of your podcast recently with Lucas Peters, where he had a 700 plus page book on grand European adventures and was just giving you, yeah, there it is, holding it up, was just giving you these incredible trips. And I'm listening to as I'm running, and some of them I've been on, some of them I've kind of been on, some of them I haven't been on. And I thought, this is cool, but let's give some categories, So that's what we're going to be doing today. But I want to keep it easy on you just to start, because we're doing intro facts here. And I always give Heather these questions, and some are easy, some are hard. I don't know if you'll get this, but you have a shot at getting this. And the question that I want you to think about as you play the intro music, and I want the guests to think about as well, is every year Norway supplies this major world city with a Christmas tree.
London. Come on.
Okay.
I don't need any queued up music for that.
Well, we got to play the intro music anyway.
See your breath on window pane. Let's just talk till it strikes again. On my way through, I saw you on my way through.
All right, since you
I didn't know I was supposed to wait till after the music to answer that question. I'm sorry.
You can do whatever you want.
Listen, we might have to get some Laundry House Band music as your theme music. Come on, man. I mean, I'm representing my band I play in here right now, and then try to convince Trav to switch his theme music over to a Laundry House track. I want to really rock out.
Hey, since you absolutely destroyed that intro fact in a good way, I was going to say we've got 30 seconds here to plug your band, Laundry House. That actually, the intro music is a good buddy of mine. So also a independent artist, Kalen Bohr, and he recorded that for us, which was awesome. But Jay, real quick, tell people, Laundry House, you're in a band. Yeah. You got some cool stuff happening.
Yeah, I play in a rock band here. This has been like a lifelong dream come true. I know we're going to do another episode on expat life here, I think. It's going to be some of the themes, so we can save some of that for this, but it's been a really incredible thing for me in my life, and just being able to play in a band was something I always wanted to do. I was nomadic for 10 years. I couldn't really have that band life, and I don't know, something I always wanted. Also, I'm not the best musician, so these Norwegians are quite kind people to let me hang around and make some music with them, and no, it's awesome. So we're coming out with an album actually in a couple month or two. It's dropping in a month. Yeah, it's a couple months at the time of this recording. And if you want to learn more, you can just go to laundryhouse.no. Weird name, Laundry House. We can save it for the other pod if you want, but I could tell you the quick story. We were neighbors who jammed at an old vaskeria, which is Norwegian for laundry house. It was in our old neighborhood, and we used to meet there and jam and write some music, and then we decided to make a band. So there you go. It's been awesome. Buskeria, like kind of like busking? Is that no Voskeria with a V?
Voskeria.
Voskeria. Vosk is like to wash in Norwegian. So yeah. Voskeria.
Expat life has treated you well. Learning that Norwegian sounds so good. Rolling off the tongue. Voskeria. Well, speaking of things that you dreamed of doing, and one of those was playing in a band. I'm super proud of you.
See, listen, this guy hasn't missed a beat. Look at that segue. 2 years, he hasn't podcasted, and he makes a segue like that. I mean, a natural.
Here we are. It's like riding a bike. One of the things that you and I have always talked about doing and haven't had the chance to do is take a friend's trip. Like go off, take a friend's trip. you and I mean, we could add other friends, but for the sake of this one, let's just say you and I get the opportunity to take a trip. We've talked about doing this plenty. I have no idea what you're going to say to this answer because it's been a while since we've actually talked about it and dreamed about it. I think maybe each of us having a second kid has put that on the shelf a little longer. But the first category that I want you to answer is, imagine that we have a 3-week trip. You and I, we can go anywhere in the world. We've got 3 weeks ahead of us. Where are we going?
Oh, man. Okay. I was going to throw one more wrinkle into this podcast here because I don't know the categories, which always makes it fun. We're going to hear your answers, I believe, as well. And I was thinking, well, no matter what the length is, maybe at the end of this, you and I should pick one together that we will go on in the next, say, 10 years. Like we have to be, 5 to 10 years. It could be next year. It could be 9 years from now. But we're saying, no, we're going to do this at some point. What do you think?
Cool.
Does that sound fun?
Call it 5 years instead of 10, though. 10 you could keep putting off.
I mean, I'm just kind of
you
like,
have to start really actually saying, how am I doing this?
Right. Okay. All right. 3 weeks friends trip. And this is like, we would imagine like a group of friends or just like you and I, let's say, hypothetically.
Let's call it you and I. You and I.
Okay.
2 people. So if you guys are listening, you're thinking about it, pick a friend that you'd want to go with and say, hey, it's a 2-person trip. You're not by yourself, but you don't have you're not with a big group. Just 2 people. Where are you going?
Okay. Well, I don't want to veer too far off the travel dream aspect of this podcast, but for some practical tips, because people love that, I think the first thing you would do if you were planning a trip like this for yourself would be just to have an honest conversation with your friend, especially if you've never traveled with them, and find out what they're really interested in, what they really want to see, the types of things they want to do, so you can avoid any confrontations or animosity on the road. And also just kind of like the vibe, like, hey, are you cool if we want to like split up for the day and do stuff like that? Just kind of like, you might be going with a good friend. It's just like you've traveled with them. It's all good. But some people listening might be thinking about doing something like this with somebody they've never traveled with. And then it's good to just talk about it, I think. So if I was doing this hypothetically, Trav, like we would probably sit down and just be like, what do you want to do, man? Like, what do you really want to do? And we could do it right now. And if it was just like you and me, and just figure out some kind of overarching trip that allows us to kind of hit most of the, not even necessarily places maybe, but things we want to do. So we've been on the mic less than 10 minutes and you're already telling me there's days that you want to go without me, that you need a break. Is the way I'm hearing it. Yeah, that's right. You nailed it. You pulled
Old
that one thing out of all that. I know you, so I know I'm thinking, all right, well, 3 weeks, what would we do? I think we would have to do some kind of backpacking type of trip, right? Where we're backpacking. Maybe there's, and when I say backpacking, I don't mean backpacking in the wilderness. I mean packing a backpack and, travel.
Like on the go more than, like we're not spending 3 weeks at an all-inclusive resort in Cancun.
Yeah, exactly. And
although,
so,
can you imagine? What would that be like?
It would be we would last
feel at the end of those 3 weeks, right? How many mudslides would we have drank at the end of 3 weeks?
All right, so there's 2 things that jumped right to mind, so I can throw those out there. One would be a classic Eurail journey, European rail trip through Europe, where we're just spending multiple days up to whatever in different places. We'd probably hit Gimmelwald, one of our favorite places up in the mountains in Switzerland, and do some hiking and stuff like that. Then maybe we get some city life stuff, maybe take off to a place we hadn't been before, check it out together, and have this mix of like city, rural, maybe like outdoor stuff, meeting locals, the whole thing. And I think with that type of setup, you can kind of hop around and be spontaneous. And, we could even like decide to rent a car and like maybe stay in some cabins or something, like, depending on where we are, there's a lot of different things. We can meet random people and rent a car with them. Like I've done that before on a European trip. So like, I don't know. I just think it's a lot of cool flexibility with that. The other one I would say is maybe we would hit like one country in Southeast Asia, maybe a place that we have never been before. Like I've never been to Indonesia or Malaysia. So instead of like trying to skip around too much, maybe just hit like one like Laos. I've never been to Laos. Like maybe, hit like one place. Like maybe we go there and just like stay in that one country for 3 weeks and then just see what happens kind of thing. Or the third one I'll throw out would be like a 3-week road trip through the Western United States, because I'm always up for that. So sorry, I know I was supposed to give one, but I gave 3.
The cool part about this, and as I was sitting here coming up with the categories and then making my lists, is that I think it just reminded me how incredible travel can be, because I would think of something like, oh, that's the answer, right? And I think of something else and think, well, is that better or worse? And they're all going to be completely different types of experiences. What struck me, and I know if you're listening to this, it's, we talk about travel all the time. It's a travel podcast. You and I have built our lives around travel. It's almost like, no, duh, Trav, of course. Like, we want to go everywhere. But it just really, I think, brought it home again to me that you could almost put me anywhere, and I think it would be fun, and I know it would be an experience. And I think that's the beauty of it. Now, that being said, I'm still going to hold you to trying to come up with specific answers, which you did. I mean, 3 specific ones, but you did. I want to touch on the Eurorail one in a little bit, because I haven't ever had that classic Eurorail experience. I've spent a lot of time in Europe, but I've never got the Eurorail pass and just went. So I want to touch on that in a little bit, because that came up, especially as I was listening to you and Lucas talk about it, and he was mentioning it, and I thought, oh yeah, I mean, that's, a lot of Europeans or people who take a gap year, even if you're coming from the States, or Australians, they'll do that. It's like a rite of passage, right? You're 18, 20, you go do it. Not every person does it, and certainly not a lot of Americans, but I didn't have that quintessential experience. So to relive that in a different way, I mean, I think we would travel a little differently now in our 40s than when we were 21, but it would still give us that. I feel like that feeling of freedom of just with Europe at your doorstep would still be there. One country's interesting for sure. I on my list didn't put anything in the US, and I actually, it was like its own podcast. If I said, let's just stay in the US, we could have asked these exact same questions and done that. But for
maybe we will. And maybe we will.
And we should.
Is that a threat?
The 3 weeks friend trip, for me, the first thing that came to my mind was I want to do a backpacking trip through the stands and Central Asia. Now, do I know a ton about it? No. Do I have an itinerary picked out? No. Because if we were going to do it, I would start nerding out about it. But have read enough that, to me, that is one of the places that I think I need to get to in the next 5 to 10 years, because it still is pretty remote, but not incredibly difficult to travel through. Reading a bit about it, I would probably grab a car and I'd say, let's just go. Drop us off in, fly into Tashkent or something like that. Drop us off. Doesn't matter where we start. Let's just bump around that region, and everything would be so new and so interesting, while also feeling easy enough. I think that was my big thing. Like, what's easy enough where you and I can have a lot of fun together, have these new experiences, but not be so remote or so difficult or so challenging that we're kind of, stressed out maybe. And that doesn't mean stuff won't happen, because that's the beauty of travel. But to me, that was right at the top of my list. Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, drop us off, let us go, and let us just wander around. I had a buddy who did it for 3 weeks via horseback. I'm not saying I want to do that. That's why I said, let's get in a car. Let's put some miles on that car. Let's go hiking through some of those incredible mountains and let the wind take us as it will.
Road trip through the stands. What's not to love?
Nothing. All right. So all right. When we get to the end, we'll pick the one that we're going to do. But for me, right at the top of the list. All right. Next category, 3-week solo trip.
Ooh. Oh, man, that's tough.
Hard to imagine getting 3 weeks to take a solo trip, I'm sure. But
one thing to go off of your quintessential European thing, I do want to mention that was a big transformative trip for me. The solo trip I took, this ties in with the solo trip thing, through Europe, was the first sort of out of country, outside of spring break in Cancun. Cancun comes up again, which I would say doesn't count as a necessarily, it was a cultural experience in some ways at 18 years old, I suppose.
Senor Frogs.
Yeah. But leaving the country and doing the first solo trip through Europe thing definitely changed my life. And that was the thing that put me on the path to a life of travel in many ways. And now this is my career, talking about it and everything, being in the travel industry. It's awesome. And so I always thought, Trav, I was just curious in your thoughts on this, that if I was ever going to write a travel memoir, what I would do would recreate the same trip in the same style and go to the exact same places. But this is 25 years later. And I think there'd be a lot to unpack about yourself and how much the places have changed. And there's a lot you could sort of tie in and play with there. What do you think? Good idea?
Love it. Our friend, both of us know him, great guy, Francis Tapon, has done some of that where one of my favorite books of all time called The Hidden Europe, where he goes through every Eastern European country. But what he's so adept at doing is he went through not every Eastern European country on one of his first trips. It's like he has 3 different times, I believe, that he's been to Eastern Europe that he's writing about. And sometimes it's 5 years, after the first time he's been there, and he weaves that together in a really interesting, unique way. So I love that theme. And I think for you, what would be even more interesting is the idea that it's 25 years. So things have drastically changed, both in Europe and obviously in yourself. So I don't see any reason this shouldn't happen. I'm ready to get on board. You start a GoFundMe, and I'm putting money towards this, man.
If you see my writing, then you probably might withdraw your cash. Okay.
Well, maybe you do it as a podcast. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be a written memoir. It could be an audio memoir.
That's true. All right, 3-week solo trip. I mean, I've done a lot of solo trips, so this is a tough question. Do I want to revisit a place that I've been solo along the lines of what we just discussed and kind of re-experience it through these older eyes, reimagine the place and what it was? Or is it, is it better to leave it frozen in this nostalgic time period and just kind of reflect on it? A perfect place that I was thinking about, Trav, I can use this as an example while I use the classic podcaster tactic of talking while I delay and think about my answer, is Montezuma in Costa Rica. And I remember going there have you been to that place?
Not to Montezuma.
Apparently
No.
But have you heard about it? It's it was a smaller sort of, maybe you want to call it a hippier style village. But anyway, I was there in 2001 or something. And when I was looking at the map of Costa Rica, because I just got a guidebook sent to me because I'm doing an interview on Costa Rica on the podcast soon. And I was doing some research and just kind of looking back at Costa Rica. And I know you've spent a lot of time there recently. And I saw Montezuma, and I just got a flood of memories of my time there and how relaxed it was and how I met this hermit living in a cave and walked on the beach and just it was just cool. And I just wonder how much a place like that has changed, and then thinking back to who I was and how much I've changed. So it would be interesting, long story short, to make this 3-week solo trip, maybe itinerary built around places that I've been before, but also I'm quite intrigued about just taking a solo trip to a place that I've never been before and just seeing what happens. And so this is tough, man. This is tough. Do I have to, I was to consider my family. I'm am I going to a place I'm quote unquote saving for me and my wife, that we'll maybe want to do together. This is
so many considerations. I just open the door, ask the question.
This is
you
difficult.
You can answer however you'd difficult.
Like. Yes. Well, oh man.
Let's put it this way.
Listen.
If you were recreating one, Let's give you two options here. If you were recreating one, would it be Montezuma or would it be the European trip that you were discussing?
Well, since we already covered that, I'd probably do something in Central America, and I might do Costa Rica again, just because I've been wanting to go back there for quite some time. And, the surfing, I'm sure like you could come down and meet up, like, what's part of the solo trip fun is that sometimes you meet up with friends and people, and so, Costa Rica could be a place that I'd like to go back to and do like a 3-week solo trip. That sounds pretty fun. Now for a totally new place, I haven't spent much time traveling around Africa. And I did a podcast recently where someone was just raving about some of the spots in Kenya to see. And I might just do something like, I've never done a solo trip in Africa. So maybe 3 weeks in Kenya.
Okay. All right. We got you to an answer eventually. I like it. Montezuma in Costa Rica, I have not been to, but I have been semi-close to it. We were down in Santa Teresa. I have heard that Montezuma is still, again, compared to when you were there, I don't know, very chill, very hippie, very like laid back. In fact, some of the people that I was talking to that were in Santa Teresa, which again is also, I consider very hippie. Now it's more, there's quite a bit of money there. So it's that idea of, it's kind of those little cultures clashing a little bit, like people with money who are hippie, not as much maybe as grungy as it used to be, right? But I did meet someone in Santa Teresa.
Tech hippies.
Yeah, or Trustafarians, if we want to throw stereotypes out and things like that. But who spent a lot of time in Montezuma, was working in Santa Teresa, and was like, oh, I got to get out of Santa Teresa. It's too much here. I got to go back to Montezuma. So that stuck with me when she said that. My 3-week solo trip is the Eurorail. So
okay, yeah, nice move.
I haven't done near as much solo traveling as you. I think I feel fairly comfortable solo traveling, but again, because of my limited amount of time solo traveling, for me, when I was looking at this and I said, all right, would I want to go to the stands? Yes. Would I want to go by myself? I would if push came to shove, but I think it would be more fun with someone else going somewhere like that. Whereas the Eurorail, maybe it would also be more fun if I'm just looking from a fun factor going with someone else, but I feel very comfortable doing it. As you mentioned, a transformative experience. Honestly, you wouldn't even have to pick where you go. You could just go when you want. Out of all the places the Eurorail goes, if someone said you have to visit these 7 places, I'm sure any 7 would be fine, right? So a 3-week trip, I kind of looked at it as like 2-3 days in one place, boop, hop on, go somewhere else, and really just use the train for everything amazing about it. I've done little portions of it with friends where you take like 2 days in Switzerland, then you go here, then you go there. So I'd probably do this pretty quick, because as a solo traveler, I would want to try to see as much as I could. And some of the other trips we're talking about, I'd feel would be harder to do quicker, especially with family or other people. So this would be my quick bump through Europe, go through a bunch of little metro areas, maybe stop in some small villages, and just use the Eurorail the way that I think is intended to be, and that is to just see as much as possible in as short as time as possible. And just, I don't know, to me, it's just crazy that you can go through so many different cultures so easily via train, because it's very far from what we can do here in the States. So that's
I remember how just amazing it was to just get out of the train station, in the next country, and just all of a sudden it's just totally different. It's an incredible experience. Nice move, man.
All right. 3-week family trip. I'm giving you the drum roll here so you have time to think about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm just kidding. It sounded like that was like a very circusy drum roll. All right. 3-week family trip. Oh boy. Well,
and specifically, I want to say trip. So
yeah,
this you don't have to go fast or bump around, but this isn't hey, we're working, the kids are doing schooling on the road. This is, we got 3 weeks, We don't have responsibilities. We can do what we want.
I'll tell you what, I just recently went with the family to Rome, and that was a fly. Like we all get on the. I have 2 kids. One's at the time of this recording. Well, my daughter will be 8 in just a couple weeks. My son is 5, turning 6 in a few months. And so just to give you a perspective on the ages, because the ages do matter. Fun fact, Travis and I met up with our kids in Mallorca, Spain. And that was just a great trip because my daughter was like around 2 at the time, I think. And your son was pretty young,
Like
I guess.
6 months, 7 months.
Yeah.
He wasn't walking
And
yet.
so, yeah, we did the all-inclusive resort thing, but we actually did it in a really cool way. And, our buddy Tim Leffel, our mutual friend, who's also he's a big travel writer and he's got great stuff. He made me feel better about it because he's like, oh man, like all inclusives are great when you have small kids like that, because as he pointed out so astutely, that they could be very picky with their eating. And so if you go somewhere and you're constantly like going out for food and they order something and they don't like it, it's a huge pain. But we would just go to the, all-inclusive buffet or whatever. And like Ellie would have ice cream and pizza or whatever every time. That was all good. But we did it in a cool way in that we obviously we left. We didn't stay in the resort all the time. We used the pool there. There was they had like fun kids things and costume characters and all that. And I'm bringing this up because if you're listening to this and you're maybe going to have kids or you have kids of a certain age, don't rule out the idea. Probably listening to this and you're more of like the independent traveler type, like you want to, find the local haunts and stuff like that. You can still stay in an all-inclusive and have the convenience of that and go do stuff. Like we went to the beach, we rented a car, we drove around the islands, like we went to local restaurants. It's just the people that don't ever leave the resort that maybe, where it becomes like, are you even experiencing any of this culture?
And I would say, Jay, that it's family resorts are much different in Europe than if you're thinking, if your only thing with an all-inclusive, because up until that point, my only thing with all-inclusive had been resort in Mexico, right, in Riviera Maya. So I have found that family resorts in Europe are much different. Like it's a much more common thing. I know plenty of independent travelers who take their families there, usually go for a week. Like you said, it's easier to get off the resort. For example, the one in Mallorca, we were just in this town in Mallorca and you could walk to the beach that was half a block away, but you were also amidst other stuff, right? So it's not always this all-inclusive where you're in the gates of a big resort and there's pools and maybe they have their own private beach, but then to get off, you have to take taxis or stuff. There are a lot of places in Europe. I've found that you have family resorts that are in the towns amidst a bunch of stuff because people don't want to just spend all their time there. In fact, there's a lot of cool, interesting, cheap, like family summer camp style resorts where you go for a week, 2 weeks. My buddy Stefan from Bluffworks has done this, sent me this awesome picture. They were in the Alps in France. He's like, we're here for 2 weeks. And then it's like a summer camp vibe for the whole family. So they have activities for kids. They have activities for parents. Sometimes the kids are going off and the parents have their own time. And I thought, whoa, this is awesome. So if you haven't been to a all-inclusive or I guess, family resort in Europe, there's a lot of different types and there's a lot that allow you to have travel experiences while also having the conveniences of eating meals in a big hall, taken care for you, pools on site, people cleaning up your condo or hotel room so that you have the conveniences, but the travel experience too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, the location was awesome. And you're right. I mean, you could bounce back if you wanted to do the buffet thing, but you didn't have to. It was just, you're right within the town, like you said. So yeah, that's a great point. So I just wanted to bring that up for some food for thought. I am not going to take my 3-week family trip that you're giving me, though.
To Alcudia on the island of Mallorca, family resort.
No, but I'll tell you what, we've done this fly-in, like I mentioned, to Rome thing recently. So we got the experience of going on the plane and, doing a city and all that stuff. Last summer, we did a couple-week road trip where we drove I live in Oslo, Norway. We drove to Denmark and we went to Legoland. And then we just stayed, it sounds like Wally World, like National Lampoon's Vacation. We drove to Denmark, went to Legoland, and then we drove to Germany and stayed at our family and my wife's aunts. And then we were there for, I don't know, several days, maybe a week. That was a cool setup. And then we drove back to this port where we could get on a boat, put our car on a boat, and take an overnight trip back to Oslo. So it was a really cool loop. We didn't have to drive because it took about 10 hours to get to where we were going in Denmark. We didn't have to reverse that all the way back. We kind of found a loop to do. And so comparing those two experiences, I would say I really did enjoy, I enjoyed both for different reasons. But man, I love a good road trip. And there's something about the convenience of that with the kids. And, you could pop out the trunk and, set up a picnic anywhere. It's just cool. And so I don't know the logistics behind this, but it might be really fun to get a camper van or something and just like drive it around Portugal and Spain, for example. Like maybe just do a road trip somewhere not too far away from where I live, somewhere in Europe where it's cool. You got some beaches, you got some mountains. And yeah, or we could take it to like, I've never been to Slovenia.
Okay.
So and I've heard
punches above its weight. I'll always say that. Slovenia.
Yeah.
The country I've been to that punches above its weight the most. Size of New Jersey. You've got the Alps. You've got a beach area. You've got Lake Bled. You've got an awesome town or city of Ljubljana. To me, it's like everything distilled into one thing the size of New Jersey. It's pretty epic.
Yeah. I mean, just because I haven't been there, I think we're going to fly. We'll deal with the flight thing because we're going to be somewhere on 3 weeks for 3 weeks. And we'll fly to Slovenia and we're going to do a 3-week road trip around Slovenia.
You might
some
not
camping
need
places.
3 weeks in Slovenia, but go Slovenia and say Slovenia and neighboring countries. And I think
sure.
You'll be set.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
All right. Well, I mean, we're talking about the one we're going to pick at the end. That sounds pretty juicy to me. And you and I have talked over the last 10 years of doing something like this, right? First we talked before we had families about, where would we go? And then once we had families, what should we do together? Because to your point, I do think, and this is how I'm wired, to me, I find there being a lot of benefits to traveling with other families because it just, the kids can play together. Our kids are roughly the same ages. You have other parents to talk to, things like that. Obviously, some of the responsibility might be off of you a little bit. Hey, you guys make meals this night. We'll make meals the other night, or we'll watch the kids while you go out to a date night. So I do see a lot of benefit to going with another family or two, if possible. And we've done a little bit of that recently because we met our friends who are Argentinian. When we were in Costa Rica, we all met there and we visited them in Argentina. We've gone back to Costa Rica with them, and it has really taken a lot of burden off of the parents when you're just a family unit and you're traveling around. I am on the same vein as you. My answer is a camper van. I have New Zealand down, and
that would be the other one. Yeah.
I put New Zealand down too, because if we're going you have to go for a significant amount of time if you're going over there from the States or even from Europe. So 3 weeks, long enough, short enough also that seems feasible. Like if things aren't going well, if the kids don't love the van or we don't love the van with the kids, I feel like you've got enough time to give it a real go and everyone get used to it, but not this overwhelming, hey kids, we're going for 4 months in a camper and this better work out. So 3 weeks, family trip, New Zealand, camper van. I'm not against Slovenia and neighboring countries, but my head went to camper van in New Zealand. And I think we might try to do that this November and December. The plan is to go with my parents. They might not be in the same camper van. I think that'd be quite a bit of people, but maybe try that out because the kids at 6 and 4 and yours are 7 and 5-ish. I feel like they're at a point where they're getting old enough that this could work well. I also think they're young enough that there could be some disasters, but that's what makes travel.
Yeah, I could get on board with that very easily. I think the one thing that would hold me back, and this is where you get into the age-specific stuff, is that there's a lot of longer hiking I think I'd want to do, and I wouldn't be able to do any of it, really. It would be very difficult to do any of that. And so I think the experience would still be epic and incredible, but it would almost be like a teaser. Like I can't, and I'm not saying I know there's families out there that do this kind of stuff, but I just don't think right now my family's one of the ones that's out and going to do a, 8-mile hike into for a multi-day thing. And I would really want to do that. So I'm going to save it. Save it.
You bring up a good point that I just want to touch on is that it's very easy to compare yourself especially when you have families to other. Oh my gosh, I interviewed, especially you or me who are interviewing or talking to people who are doing epic trips. I interviewed a family that the kids were 10 and 8 and they did a 4-year bike ride, or whatever. And you had someone recently on your podcast, Suzanne, was it? With Wave Walker?
Yeah.
Who you guys should listen to this, who took a trip as a 7-year-old, and her dad put her on her boat for 10 years. So there is, listen, that's obviously wild and very extreme. But there's people who do this extreme travel that make me think, oh, my kids should toughen up, or we should be able to do this as a family and it should be all idyllic. And then I have to remind myself, listen, we are who we are. If that's not going to be fun for us, or my kids don't want to do it, or I don't want to do it, that's okay. So just, a little bit on my soapbox, a little bit therapy session to you and I talking to ourselves of, it's easy to compare yourself to other people, especially when you know people who are doing really cool or on the outside look like really epic, amazing things. And they are, but it's not always like all that glitters is not always gold. Right.
No.
And I think,
well, I mean, you brought up you brought up a good point when I was thinking about the safari thing with the kids, and you're like, it might be pretty tricky because you've been on safari, I haven't. It's something I want to do. It's something I want to do with my family. And the glitters is gold thing is me imagining, we'll be like, imagine giving your kids that experience and yourself of seeing these animals in the wild and all this stuff. But the reality is you have to be like in a Jeep for many hours and very quiet. And like my son is just not going to do that right now. It's just not happening. So you have to be realistic with the people you're with and what they're capable of, what they're interested in, what they can handle, what they're going to enjoy. And you just never know with kids. My son loves eating pasta. And then we said we were going to do this pasta making thing in Italy, and we did. And it seemed like he was having fun, but then later he said it wasn't that much fun, but I think he still had fun. You just don't know.
Still no. Yeah. Being realistic is important. I think talking to other people who have done it, like, for example, I didn't want to talk you out of the safari, but I said, Jay, here are the realities of a safari. Now, I'm sure there are safaris out there that are more kid-friendly that do different things, but here are the realities. And if no one's going to have fun, if you're constantly shushing your kid, or, hey, we're going out in the Jeep for 5 hours to see a rhino, maybe once, it's just, you just have to be realistic, I think. And I think talking to other people who have done it is important. Okay, staying on the family thing. Now you got 3 months, but you're going to work and live with your family. So that means maybe they're doing schooling. I don't want to put too many parameters on this, but like you're going to go and you're going to semi-expat, home base, let's call it, with your family for 3 months somewhere. Where are you going?
Okay. I hate to bring this up again because maybe it's because I know you've been there quite a bit and I have had good memories there, and I'm interested in being by the beach because I am not usually near warm water living in Norway, and the warmth is attracting me. But again, Costa Rica was the first place that came to mind of having 3 months. Now, I have spent 3.5 months in Argentina and Chile, and that was, part solo, part with the gal I was with at the time. Another incredible place that I could easily imagine spending 3 months in. But then I keep going back to the weather thing, and I deal with a lot of harsh weather here in Norway. And so when I imagine 3 months somewhere, I imagine somewhere more tropical, because it would just be nice to have that experience for 3 months. And winter's long here, It's probably going to be somewhere in Central America. I've been to Nicaragua. That could be it. And another contender. It could be Costa Rica. But it could also be, money's a factor too. So I could say Hawaii. Hawaii would be awesome, spending 3 months in Hawaii. I can't speak to how we would do that at the moment, but
you could get a
if we're
house
just
sit.
Dreaming, we could do house sitting and stuff like that. if I did a little more research, just focusing on islands and some of the cultural aspects of different islands, I might hone in on some other island I haven't been on or something. But it's definitely going to be some kind of tropical island vibe thing, living near the beach type of thing. That was a little vague answer, I know, but
Well, my head usually goes to those types of places as well. I think because we've done it recently where we were in Costa Rica for 3 months, even though it was not planned to be 3 months, it was 1 month and another month and another month, shows you the beauty of it also of why we stayed. I went the opposite way, and I have been very intrigued recently with trying to do a ski season somewhere. And I've never done it. You and I have talked about this at length of saying, like, could we get our families together and do a ski season? And again, at 6 and 4, I'd want to probably be with another family or somehow that there was someone to watch them, because I'm doubting the kids are going to want to go out all day, nor would we want to take the kids out all day. But if you're there for 3 months and you're in the peak of ski season, you've got plenty of possible days to go out. And we would try to set it up so that we would be living our regular life. And so in an ideal world, here's how it looks to me is we go somewhere. I've been very high on the Austrian Alps recently. So there are a lot of towns there that are big enough. You know, if you get outside of Innsbruck, hour and a half from Innsbruck or 2 hours from Innsbruck, come down from Munich, on a train, 3 hours. So there's a lot of places that are accessible to like big cities and people flying in to visit you and things like that. You also do it in the Italian Alps as well. You could do it in the Swiss Alps. But that region, and I just see it as how cool would it be to say, yeah, I'm going to go out and ski in the morning and hang out with the fam. Maybe they're going skiing. Maybe people are staying back at the chalet, right? By the fire. And then you come back, kids do a little bit of schooling if they need to do schooling, pop on the computer, do a little bit of work, call it a day. So to me, that's an experience I've never had, where I have had the one that you mentioned in Costa Rica, which again, snap my fingers, I would go back in a heartbeat.
Yeah. How was it? How was would you recommend it to other?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Same thing. Take out what I just said and put in skiing or surfing instead of skiing. And it was that, hey, we're going to go out. We're going to go out for an hour in the morning. Maybe we wake up in the morning, me and a few of the guys, we'd go out at 6:30, catch some waves in the morning, come back in, eat some breakfast on the beach, get like a nice little acai bowl on the beach, come back. Kids are there, swim in the pool. They weren't doing school at that point. So we'd swim in the pool, do a little bit of work here and there. So yeah, with a flexible schedule and with having to work, but probably ideally only a couple hours a day. And let's say the kids did need school, then maybe we'd find a school to put them in there for 3 months. Maybe we'd find a tutor. Maybe we would be tutoring. The logistics are up in the air a little bit. But if I'm just thinking of idealized versions of it, I have done the surf thing and it was awesome. So now I'm thinking, it would be cool to do. I mean, imagine being in a ski out place in the Alps. That would be pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's cool to hear that. I mean, it's awesome that you got to do the Costa Rica thing. And I think the other part of that I just wanted to add before we move on is the pura vida culture, or this laid back culture, and you can find in the islands of, I know Costa Rica's not an island, but like that kind of vibe or the energy there, Hawaii, these places, they have a relaxed vibe, and that I think adds to that relaxed cultural sort of approach to life would make for a pleasant 3 months, I think.
For sure. All right. You mentioned saving one for your wife. Would you want to do it with your wife? That sounds a bit odd, I guess. Or a trip with your wife. So 1 week getaway, just you and Anna Dorta. You got 1 week. What are you doing?
Oh, man. I mean, 1 week. See how seriously we take this? Like, this is like, I'm like getting stressed out, but I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? As if this is real and it's happening.
As if you're
as if
leaving
Bob Barker
tomorrow,
just
right?
said the price is right and he's giving me a free trip. R.I.P. Bob Barker, by the way. Let's see. 1 week. I want to maximize my time. I don't want to spend, 2 of those days traveling and being jet lagged and all that. You got to factor these things in. I mean, I'm bringing them up because it sounds like, well, pie in the sky. Yeah, if you had a teleportation device, that's one thing. But if you're just, where you're at and you get to go for a week, you got to take that into consideration. I have been to Scotland and Ireland and very much enjoyed those places. And I know Anna Dorta really wants to go, my wife. And so I think we could just have a great time going to like Scotland, probably would be where we would go, and maybe doing some days in Edinburgh and then do some days out in some smaller village type of thing out in the country. That could be really, really relaxing, fun, nice, pretty easy to get to. Definitely a good time. We could also, and I would have to talk to her about this, but I haven't been to like Cyprus, for example, or like one of those places down there. And that might be fun just for the novelty of, okay, it's warm, like depending on what time of year it is. We could go down there and spend a week in just a place we don't really know much about and just see what unfolds. Stay in one place the whole time. I think Scotland would probably stay in maybe 2 places for a week. I don't like to move around too much if it's just a week, or we would just go someplace where we could base for a week and do exploration from there. If we were in the States, say we were visiting my family and we had a week, maybe I'd go back to Colorado because we took our honeymoon road trip there. I used to live there, and it'd be really nice to spend a week in Colorado with my wife. And so I'm going to give Colorado as the answer. Colorado. I'm going with Colorado.
All right. I like it. Like that you gave us a U.S. based place as well as considering, because you should take this seriously, and I did too. Considering the time frame, right? That's why some of these are different time frames. 1 week doesn't mean. I mean, you could fly across the world, and that's okay, but you're going to lose some time. So I also thought about this, and I think this is about as far as I would go, but it is fairly easy to get to from the East Coast of the U.S. And this was not my original answer. As I was going through these, I had a bunch of other answers, and then it just popped into my head, and I thought, nope, we're going to Iceland. Like, we're going to Iceland. It's
I almost
unique.
said Iceland. Yeah.
Okay. Have you and Anna Dorta been?
Yeah. We've been just for some days in Reykjavik, Reykjavik. Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought not too hard to get to. You can get some flights from the East Coast here. Okay. But completely different. Also, a place that you can travel is small enough that you could travel around. You wouldn't feel like it's so massive that you're spending all your time traveling, but you also could get in a car and travel around and see a lot of different parts of it. And I think feel pretty fulfilled. So one of the things about travel for me is I go somewhere, obviously want to go back, like most people listening, like you and I want to feel like I did enough that I got a sense of it. And so if it was like Australia, well, 1 week in Australia, all right, you're probably going one place. So did I really, I'm going to leave feeling a bit unfulfilled. So for me, I'm like, Iceland's small enough. I can check it off. I've been there. I've seen quite a bit. We probably still get 2-3 days relaxing, 2-3 days out on the road, small enough that I think a surface level trip of a week at least gives me a deep enough understanding that I feel like I've been and have seen most of the things that I would want to see, while also not being too far away. So
nice. Yeah.
And I think it's pretty romantic, right? It's Iceland.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, plenty to do. Drive around. You can see all kinds of beautiful nature. You could stay in cabins, camp, nice hotels. You got it all. Great choice.
All right. Iceland it is. All right, we got a lot of contenders for where we're going to go, actually, where we're going to hold ourselves to going. The last one that I have, drum roll here. I'm a genie in a bottle.
I wish for unlimited wishes.
And I can snap my fingers, and for one day, you can be anywhere in the world. So you get a day to experience anywhere in the world. Money is not an object. imagine that it is the most idyllic day possible. So wherever you're going, it has the best weather for that place. Everything's set up for you. You say, I want to do this in a day, and it's happening, right? What are you doing? You got one day.
The idea that came to mind is I'd probably go somewhere like Afghanistan or Iraq or Papua New Guinea, something like that. Something that's kind of hard to get to, a little bit sort of wild, totally different culture. I don't know. I don't know how that looks from like a safety standpoint, but I mean, at least for Afghanistan right now, I know that I've talked to some people that have been there, and all these. I mean, there's people there now. Like that's the thing, media. But there's obviously a lot going on there. I could think of places like that where it would be really cool just to teleport in and just kind of experience a day there. And I've heard so many great things about Iraq, for example, and Iran could be one. Again, like I don't know. There's all these sort of. I know Rick Steves talks about travel as a political act and things like that. There's considerations and things like that. But I'm giving you the vibe of what I would pick. I'd pick something like that was a bit hard to get to, a bit wild, maybe even a bit dangerous, and just have a day there. And it doesn't have to be an ideal day. It just needs to be, it will just be an experience,
Okay. That's all. Yeah. That's not what I would have expected you would pick. I had a few in mind, and at first it was like the first thing that came to mind was Antarctica. Just drop me there because it's hard to get to.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of thought, isn't some of the fun of going there getting there, right?
That's true.
It kind of didn't seem like a day there, like one day would really do it justice in a way. I thought of North Korea, but again, I kind of was like, I don't know. Like, do I really, truly want to see? Well, I truly want to see it. Do I think I would get to truly see it? No, you would get to see the version of it that they want you to see. So that was interesting, and I still would like to see the version that they would want me to see, because are we ever going to see a country like that again? Probably not in this day and age, being that isolated and insular compared to the rest of the world. So those two came to mind as hard to get to. Just drop me here. But then I thought, you know what? I want to ski and surf in the same day. And so if everything's taken care of for me, if I could, like, what a day that would be to wake up and do one of those, and then with a buddy or two, hop in a car and go and do the other. And at the end of the night, just lay in bed and think, man, we skied and surfed in the same day. Like, that was pretty epic. So I did a little bit of research, and by a little bit, I mean, the 5-minute research here. And, this one article had 9 destinations where you could do it. And so Hawaii's one, right? California, places in California you can
Norway's
do it.
one, I think.
Okay. They didn't have Norway on there, but yeah. I don't think they had
Water
Chile.
Would be very cold, but
yeah, and some of these. But the most random one, and I was like, "Whoa, this would be pretty cool," because it would also be a completely different culture than I would be used to. Is Lebanon, and apparently you can ski and surf in the same day in Lebanon. So I just thought, all right, now I'm throwing something brand new to the mix, like a place I've never been. I've been to Israel, but I've never been to the rest of that part of the world. And so I thought, all right, I'll ski and surf the same day. If it's got to be in Hawaii, oh, darn, right? I'd totally do that. But I saw Lebanon and I was like, yeah, that sounds like one of those pretty epic, like, yeah, back home in a day. Oh my gosh, what'd you do? Yeah, I went ski and surf in Lebanon. Genie granted me a wish and did it. Now I'm back. And pretty cool story there. So
yeah, that's
cool. Mine.
Well, similar vibe too, like a totally kind of different place. Yeah, than would expect. Well done. Nice list, man. That was fun.
Thank you, buddy. And
where are we going?
Well, out of those, if you asked me to pick one of these that I was gonna do,
with me.
Yeah, with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be greedy. And I'm going to say, I want the 3 months, work, live with the family, and let's do it. I like, this is, now you get to choose. I'll do it in the Austrian Alps or I'll do it in Costa Rica, but I'm going to be greedy, get as much time as possible. 3 months, work, live with the family, create memories, really create a base there, and just like have some time to dig in and get to be around each other for a long time. That's the greedy part of me.
Well, that would be nice, but I'm gonna apologize to the families right now, because it's not that I don't like that idea. I love that idea, but I am voting for the road trip through the stands, man. Like you and me in a vehicle going through the stands and just like seeing what happens. That sounds like something I want to do.
Okay, that was 1B for me. So happy to do that. Let's say in the next 5 years we'll make both of those happen. You know that I'm a huge, and I think you are too, but and we've actually talked to us, a huge proponent of trying to figure out ways that people, families who want to be location independent, can do that and can do things that are longer, right, than maybe just a vacation. These 1 to 3 month, maybe longer type things. So that's a mission of mine over the next 5 years, is try to figure out how to maybe help families do that. Obviously, how to do it with my family and test it out and see what it really is like, the realities of that lifestyle. So I'll keep pushing for that. I'll keep pushing for skiing in the Austrian Alps for 3 months. And you keep pushing me to do a 3-week, grab a car, go through the stands trip. And I think we'll all end up happy at that point.
Nice. Perfect.
Awesome, buddy. Jay, I know it's a holiday where you're at. My kids are on spring break too. You said before we got on here, it was the nicest day that you have had in 7 months of Norwegian winter, like as far as the sun being out and everything looking awesome. So we're going to let you go. I want to say thanks for coming on. Where are they coming to find out more about what you're doing? If they don't know, if they're the few people in this world that don't know, where are they coming?
Well, if you like travel podcasts, I host one called Zero to Travel. It's been going for 11 years strong now, which is insane. And if you just search Zero to Travel, ZEROTO Travel in any podcast app or wherever, you can find it. And if you go to zerototravel.com, then you can, actually, I should say zerototravel.com/newsletter. Then you can hop on the free newsletter list if you want more travel goodies. That's, again, totally free.
Awesome. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time, happy travels.
There you have it. Thank you so much for listening. Did it bring some new ideas out for you? Did you answer those questions? Did you have fun coming along on that ride? I hope you did. It was a fun one, and I think this time of year is a great time of year to do an episode like this where you just, just relax into the dreams. Let them go wherever and just see where they take you. And they may actually physically take you to a new spot next year. Okay. 2 things. I'm going to leave you with a quote as per the usual, but I want to give a quick shout out to somebody in the community. First, just a quick reminder, zerototravel.com/newsletter is where our free newsletter goes out. It goes out once a week, and you can sign up over there. So if you want to keep in touch off the pod, please do that. Now, I want to say thanks to Sally Sylvester. She wrote me an email. She said she was on her way to Nepal. She had listened to, if you dig back into the feed, you'll hear an episode I did with James Hopkins called From Wall Street to Nepal, Life-Changing Moments and What It Means to Have Enough. And he left Wall Street to go to Nepal, ended up starting a social enterprise to help fund education for kids. And Sally from this listening community and her husband connected with him, and they visited to see his whole enterprise where these women are making these beautiful quilts, and to meet him. And they actually brought, I think it was like 40 pounds of Legos, because they had their own idea with all of these Legos floating around in the world. They thought, well, why don't we take these and put them to good use at some schools and places where they need it. And so she sent me some pictures of, these like multiple plastic bins filled with Legos. These kids had never seen Legos before, so they started like stacking them and putting cool things together and, doing all the fun things you do with Legos. And I just really encourage her to keep going with that project because I think it's a really great idea, and anything that gets kids involved with, using their hands and building and being creative and all that kind of stuff. And, I think she's onto something here. So be on the lookout. I told her, when she gets her organization launched and everything like that, happy to support it. We'll send it out to the newsletter and stuff like that. But I just wanted to give her a massive shout out because she told me when she was going on this trip that she's going, and then she sent me pictures from the trip. She traveled with all these Legos. And I think this just shows you that, when you want to start something like this and you got an idea, this is kind of how it starts, right? It's not about, okay, I'm going to sit behind the computer and, what does it mean tax-wise to have a nonprofit and, whatever organization or for-profit social enterprise, whatever you're trying to start. Sometimes it's just getting out there and just like doing a thing. All that stuff will come, but the reality was, I have this idea. I want to put these Legos to use. Let me collect them in my community and let me bring them on this trip and just kind of like get started, right? And I don't know, I just think it's so empowering. And I love, of course, hearing stories like this from the community, when somebody, connects with a prior guest and then they end up like seeing them in person. And, it just, I don't know, it gives me chills to kind of think, hey, this is the ripple of, good vibes we're just trying to send out here through this entire listening community and beyond. So thanks for being a part of it. I really, truly appreciate it. And if you haven't checked in, you just want to say hi, share your own story, let me know what you're up to, please do that. This is a two-way conversation. This podcast, I make it for you. So please get in touch. I want to leave you with a quote from Mazu, who said, "The tighter you squeeze, the less you have." Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.